We're going to pretend that this number 5 has distal and occlusal groove caries. We're starting with a very light or point contact, and the tooth is rather tapered at the neck, so we're going to have to adjust our preparation accordingly so that we can achieve the proper contour. My preference is to start with any pear-shaped burr and enter right at the point where the contact is supposed to be. That way I know that my box is going to be in the right place, centered around the right spot. You can start with the occlusal aspect, but that way it makes it a little bit more difficult to visualize where the box is supposed to be. At this point, I'm going to finish the depth of the box and complete the occlusal portion of the preparation. This is going to be a composite restoration, but note that I'm using an inverted cone-shaped burr. Therefore, my walls are not going to be parallel. In fact, they're going to be converging. There is evidence to show that cutting composite preparations in the same fashion that you would an amalgam restoration, you're gaining a large amount of mechanical retention such that you're relieving a lot of the stress off the enamel margins of the composite. And as we know, composite bonds the enamel much stronger than it would to dentin. Next, we're going to go through with a flat-ended burr and finish the floor of our box form. We're right at the CEJ, so we're going to make sure this is a butt joint at 90 degrees. Now a flame-shaped burr is used to bevel the buccal and lingual walls of the box form of our preparation, which will greatly increase the bonding surface area to enamel and the retention of our restoration. Make sure your bevels are kept within enamel only. Note that the floor of the box form was not beveled because it's at the CEJ and there is no enamel left to bevel. Keeping with the modified amalgam preparation theme, adding retention points will greatly increase the retention of your restoration. Use either a pencil-shaped burr or a small round burr, anything of your choosing. Here's our preparation. Our box form is a little bit larger than we'd like, but that's okay because we're going to need that extra space to achieve the proper contour of the tooth. The pulpal wall correctly follows the shape of the pulp, but we've left a little notch at the axiopulpal line angle, which we'll correct just before we restore the tooth. My preference for Class II composites is to use a sectional matrix band, and particularly the newer Garrison rings. When choosing your sectional matrix, make sure you choose one that ends right at the marginal ridge. And if it protrudes above the marginal ridge, you'll likely end up adding too much composite and have more finishing work to do. The nice feature about this particular ring is that it has large rubber pads that adapt very well to a broad variety of tooth shapes. The tension on the ring is also what gives you the separation between the teeth. This usually produces a very nice contact. Make sure to always bevel your contact point. Check to make sure that your box form's floor is completely sealed. We're using a 5th generation total etch bonding system. Now we selectively etch the enamel first to avoid over-etching the dentin. You can see here that I initially missed the mesiobuccal corner of the preparation. Things usually don't go perfectly. All the more reason to use amalgam techniques to relieve tension off the enamel-bonded composite margins. When washing off your etch, first suction up as much as you can to avoid washing it into the patient's mouth. Do not desiccate your tooth. The literature shows that a slightly moist tooth actually has much more capillary action than dried tubules. This makes sense because the primary solvent in your bonding agent is usually acetone, and acetone is hydrophilic. Apply your bonding agent, blow it thin and evaporate the acetone. Apply your bonding agent once more, blow it thin and evaporate the acetone to assure full deep coverage of the preparation. We're using flowable in the floor of our box form to assure that our restorative material makes it to the very corners of our preparation. This is a non-masticatory, low stress-bearing area, so flowable will be just fine. In addition, we're removing one wall from our preparation and greatly reducing our C factor. When initially squeezing a fresh tube of composite, you usually find a cakey bit at the tip. You want to avoid using this because it'll cause defects in your restoration. The composite is vibrated into place in a triangular fashion such that we only contact one wall and the floor of our preparation. This is an attempt at efficiently filling our preparation while controlling C factor and hopefully increasing the longevity of our restoration.
Not hard. Nothing's crazy.
Note that the depth of each layer is less than 2 millimeters and much less than the critical 3 millimeters to assure that our light cure reaches the very depth of our restorative material.
All it's going to do is make my pocket bigger. Guy?
I do not know what 3D guy.
It's on his boy. He said it was spot on.
Unless it's, I don't know, the last time I tried doing something and I used a shake guy for the deeper.
Is his beat out?
Here we're finishing all our margins with an extra fine burr and an extra fine football burr. This is part of our polishing strategy. We're planning on only using an enhanced point, so using extra fine burrs will help us achieve a much better polish.
Oh, I'm no more used to him than I've ever been to you.
He's used to his little comfort zone over in, other mountains.
Oh, you're in another world here.
So where is it? 4 and 2. Okay. We can compare it to the other one. What shade did you get? 835. Okay. Oh my God, I don't know why.
At this point, you would check your contacts and adjust the occlusion if necessary.
Just say Vita, everything else is that I'm just like.
Well, he's been happy with the temper. He really didn't change that. And so he was happy with it before. Yeah. Warm salt, water rinses, you want to give him a shot of...
A drop of water, or better saliva, usually helps create the slurry that the polishing point needs to properly polish the composite. We began with almost no contact, but ended with a very good contact and proper contours. This patient will not be getting food stuck between these two teeth. Additionally, we have margins that are out in the open and very easily cleansable.